Hi, Marcus.
Hey, how's it going?
How's it going? Hello, I'm in Turkey.
Yeah.
1900-meter above sea level.
Oh, okay.
Ah,
It's
well,
probably quite hot there.
yes, very sunny. The
Yeah.
temperature is okay, but very sunny.
Oh, okay.
How about Sweden?
Um, Similar, I guess. It's pretty sunny. And yeah, temperature is still fine. So pretty enjoyable after all.
Wow, okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, would you be able to share the screen for the slide we prepared?
Yeah, I can activate screen sharing here. That's actually maybe a good idea. I will. I will try if I can share my screen. Jaha, jag måste, sorry. uh, Swedish interrupted. I must go back in and out here because I need to change my system settings so I can actually screen share. I
Oh,
think, yeah. Okay, so I'll be back in a second.
okay. See ya.
Okay, new new try. Can you see my screen or not? I cannot hear you.
Yeah,
You're
sorry, I was muted. Yeah, I can see your screen.
okay. Okay, great. Then this is working.
All right, give me 5 minutes. I have come back to my hotel room, so maybe 5 minute rest will be very helpful to
Yeah,
me.
sure. I mean, take the time you need. I think we everything is working, and then we can just wait for everyone to arrive.
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much. See you in 5 minutes.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Paul.
Paul, do you want to test whether you can share your screen?
Oh, did you hear what just Marcus just said?
No, I was
Uh,
still in preparing everything. Sorry.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Marcus
Yeah.
said, do you want to test whether you can share your screen?
Yeah, probably it works. Yes. Do you see my slides?
Yes, I see your slides.
Okay.
Great.
Good morning, Jongchan.
Morning,
Hey.
morning. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, thanks
Nice
for
to
being
see you.
punctual. Would you want to try sharing your screen?
Oh yeah. Oops. Um, okay. Okay, I think I should share. I'm sorry. Let me do it again.
I can't.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yep,
Yes.
Yes.
good.
Um,
No
so
wonder you need a coffee in the morning.
I need coffee all the time.
Oh, yeah.
so do you all see my the presentation mode, not the
Yes.
Yes, we do.
okay, thank
Perfect.
you.
All right. So 20 people indicated their w willingness to attend. So let's see.
Hopefully they join all.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually quite surprised when I saw the list of the people that had signed up. It was quite a few, and also quite a good mixture, but I think mostly from places in the US.
Yeah.
But I thought the time was actually also quite accommodating from people from Europe. But maybe, yeah, we'll see.
Our German folks miss something special today.
Yeah.
Oh, where are you now? I'm in Turkey, actually.
I'm in Gießen in the middle of Germany.
Middle of Germany. Okay.
You're in Turkey?
Yeah, for a chemistry education conference.
Oh, on which conference are you?
It is IUPAC affiliated
Okay.
European chemistry something
Yeah.
something.
Did you get some inspiring thoughts so far? Is it worth going to Turkey for this conference?
Well, both for conference and food. Yes. Huh.
Okay.
Wow, Turkey. The kaymak, the milk cream is incredible. If you visit Turkey, please try kaymak with melon. Please,
Okay.
kaymak with melon.
I've never been there so far,
Me neither.
Worth trying. Worth trying.
and I also haven't been to Sweden so far.
Yeah, I told you about the possibility to come here,
Maybe there's a
so
chance
don't
of a future.
complain.
That was good. I had a feeling something like that was coming. Yeah. So in terms of slides, are we going to just use one slide deck or are we switching between people? What's the plans for that?
So we will be switching a bit. We have one slide deck that we will be sharing with basically just walk through the structure of the session and everything. And then Paul and Jean-Chan will use their own slide decks for their presentations.
Okay, I have a couple of slides too, if that's appropriate. If it's
Yeah,
not,
sure.
that's
Wow,
fine too.
great.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Will, do you want to test then, Kent, whether you can actually share your screen?
Sure, let me make sure I've got them. How's that?
That looks great.
Nice.
Yes?
Good.
Is it better? I'm assuming it's better that way because it's a little larger, but if uh if I don't put it in slide view mode, is that still?
It still looks okay, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not sharing currently, correct?
Yes, it's not showing currently.
Okay. Okay.
What's the order? You start, Lee and Marcus,
Yes, we will
and who?
start. Um,
Ben?
and then we will I think we start with let me look before I say something wrong. I need to navigate to the folder anyway, but I think you are starting.
Okay.
Where is my base here? It's waiting. Yes, so yes, we are starting with you, Paul. So just for everyone, right? Um, Gyeonggeon and I, we will start the session. Brief
Yeah,
introduction,
yeah.
um, briefly give an overview. Then we will very briefly talk about, hey, there are these two awards. The call will go out in
Yeah, yeah. It'll be
February,
better
blah, blah,
to
blah.
share your screen, Marcus.
Yeah, I can also start sharing my screen
Yep,
now.
yep, yep.
Wait a second. Um, let's do it like this. Okay. Um, so, right, then we'll talk about the awards briefly, and then Paul, you can present your work.
Yes.
Then Yongshan, you can present your work. Then we will hear from you, Kent, and I guess yeah, Jeong and I can just comment a bit on that. And then it's already basically time for our Q&A with questions from the audience. And so we have prepared this one summary slide that I think kind of summarizes the points Jeong and I want to make.
Great. We have 6 more minutes.
I will actually use the time to go grab a coffee and then I'll be back in a second.
All right. Okay, can we wait well for a couple of more minutes? All right, shall we start?
Yeah, I think let's start. So, hello and welcome everyone to this NARST virtual event, writing strong AI proposals for NARST, lessons from the Raise Rig Awards. Together with uh, my co-host here, we will be sharing this virtual event. My name is Markus Kubsch. I'm an associate professor here at Umeå University in Sweden. And yeah, together with Gyeonggeon Lee, I'm a co-chair of the NARST Raise Rig. Gyeonggeon, you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Yeah, I'm Gyeonggeon Lee, from NI, Singapore. I'm also a co-chair of Raise Rig.
Yeah, and together we want to thought with this virtual event. We want to give you a brief overview of what we're going to do today. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to present two examples of award-winning research, and we have Paul Martin here, who last year won the Research Worth Reading Award, and we have Jung Park here, who won the Innovative Research Paper Award. After those two briefly present their work so you get an idea of what this can look like, award-winning research. We will share some perspectives, and we have a past Raise Rig co-chair, Kent Crippen here, who will share a bit of his thoughts and experience from handing out and being responsible for these awards for the past, I think, 3 years. And then we're going to close with some open discussion and Q&A. So before we dive into the presentations, just a brief reminder what these awards are about. So there's two awards that the RIG hands out. They are both initiated through a call for nominations in February. And the Research Worth Reading Award is for an original, empirical, or theoretical contribution that has been published in a journal. The purpose of the study must fall within the scope of the Raise Rig, so it must somehow be about how AI, in some way, shape, or form works or influences education, science education. And the work must exemplify research with clear and explicit relevance and application for practitioners. Then we have the innovative research paper, and that is an accepted NARST conference paper or contribution that describes a completed study. Again, this must fall within the scope of the race rig. And here it's really about some innovative work that is in some way, shape, or form original, creative, gives us a new perspective on things, and is deemed a significant contribution to the field. So if you're either having a paper out or if you plan to submit relevant work to the conference and you get accepted, keep an eye out for the call for these awards, and you may be eligible for those. So now I think without further ado, we can get to the first presentation. And I'm asking Paul Martin to share his screen so you can tell us something about his work that won him the Research Worth Reading Award. Paul, you want to go ahead?
Yes, thank you, Marcus. I start sharing my slides. Yes, now you probably can all see my slides, and yeah, it's a good afternoon from the perspective of my time zone now, and thank you very much for being part of today's NARST virtual event. And within the next about 10 minutes, I'm going to share some insights on our empirical study that won the Research Worth Reading Award from the Rice Rig at this year's NARST conference. And we are going to answer a short but complex question, adaptive but equitable, by exploring the impact of machine learning-based adaptive support on so-called educational debts in undergraduate chemistry. Max already introduced me. My name is Paul Martin. I work at the Institute of Chemistry Education at Justus Liebig University Gießen in the middle of Germany. And I start this short overview with a quote by the Swiss psychologist Elsbeth Stern. Elsbeth Stern argues that students enter formal education with diverse cognitive abilities, affective emotional traits, and socioeconomic backgrounds, indicating that a complex interplay of innate predispositions and environmental factors shapes students' learning. And this quote already indicates that a range of internal and external factors account for variability in student learning. On one end of this continuum, internal factors like individual choices or personal interests can account for variability in student learning. On the other end of the continuum, there are, however, also structural, systemic, and institutional barriers that have historically limited access to learning opportunities for students from marginalized groups. And Ladson-Billings refers to this kind of inequities as educational debts that society owes to these students. Technology-based adaptive support has been increasingly positioned as a promising instructional reform to address differences in students' prior knowledge, of course, especially given the recent advancements in artificial intelligence. However, to harness the full potential of AI-based adaptive support, while also mitigating all the risks related to education debts, we need to better understand to what extent students benefit from or are even disadvantaged by specific types of AI-based adaptive support. And we could also leverage frameworks that guide the design and evaluation of all these systems with an explicit focus on educational debts. And we pursued both objectives within this empirical study, and to do so, we applied the so-called enhanced educational debt framework by Speklian-Nehm. This framework investigates the extent of learning and who's actually improving the learning outcomes in order to investigate whether differences in learning outcomes are associated with education debts or not. And as indicated by the blue boxes here, this framework follows 4 steps in data analysis. First, as in every other research design, it is important to operationalize and in some cases even to quantify the objectives regarding students' learning outcomes. Then educators should establish how differences in students' learning outcomes could or should evolve over time based on data-driven analysis. Researchers and educators can evidence differences in learning outcomes, and these empirical analyses help finally improve future instruction. And we followed these 4 steps within our study, and these 4 numbers structure the remainder of my talk. First, we determined appropriate measures in our setting. We focused on undergraduate organic chemistry students' reasoning about reaction mechanisms. We call this scientific practice mechanistic reasoning. These undergraduate organic chemistry students were prompted to judge the plausibility of alternative different reaction products for different reaction mechanisms. For example, for the intramolecular Williamson ether synthesis shown on the slide. For alternative reaction products were sequentially displayed to the students. The ones that are highlighted in red are rather implausible, and the ones that are highlighted in green are rather plausible. And then first, students had to make a claim on each product's plausibility, which was covered by a single choice item. Then they had to back their claims based on an open-ended evidence statement that referred to chemical information or chemical concepts. And finally, they had to justify the linkage between claim and evidence by an open-ended reasoning statement that often included specific chemical properties. For example, here, a student claimed that the first of these 4 reaction products is implausible because the hydroxide ion is a strong base due to its low pKb value. And then we thought about how differences in students' reasoning about reaction mechanisms could evolve over time. And here it is important to consider that adaptive support can follow 2 fundamentally different aims. On the one hand, adaptive support can help students meet a foundational learning objective. To do so, we must define such a foundational learning objective. Students who do not yet meet this foundational learning objective are provided with further adaptive support until they meet it. By contrast, students who have already met this learning objective are provided with additional learning material for enrichment, which is not directly linked to this learning objective. On the other hand, we could also use adaptive support or adaptive support systems to adapt these learning objectives to students' prior knowledge in order to help every student to meet their full learning potential. For example, students with lower prior knowledge could work toward a primary learning objective. At the same time, students with higher prior knowledge could be provided with more difficult tasks that are linked to a secondary learning objective. And these 2 aims of adaptive support can lead to 2 distinct empirical outcomes. If we decide to support students in meeting foundational learning objective, we may observe a pattern that is termed convergent adaptivity in the literature. And this pattern is characterized by the mitigation of differences in learning outcomes over time. We could also adapt learning objectives to students' prior knowledge. Then we may observe a pattern that more closely is associated with divergent adaptivity. And this pattern is characterized by the persistence of difference in learning outcomes over time. And in some cases, these differences may even be exacerbated. In this study, we used a machine learning model to automatically code students' open-ended mechanistic reasoning. We used that model to adapt learning objectives to students' prior knowledge, and therefore we hypothesized that we may observe a pattern that is more closely associated with divergent adaptivity. And with these considerations in mind, we wanted to investigate 2 research questions. First, we wanted to know how our adaptive support impacts differences in students' reasoning about these reaction mechanisms over time. And to answer this research question, we monitored students' mechanistic reasoning at 4 time points within a single semester in an undergraduate organic chemistry course at a US institution. Besides the intramolecular Williamson ether synthesis, students had to touch the plausibility of alternative reaction products for an enamine hydrolysis, an aldol condensation, and a glycine condensation. And students' open-ended mechanistic reasoning was then automatically coded by our machine learning model. And this allowed us to continuously individualize both feedback and subsequent exercises to meet students' current mechanistic reasoning complexity. And based on this setting, we map what we call students' mechanistic reasoning trajectories across this semester. And this figure here shows the mechanistic reasoning trajectories of all 266 students participating in our study. These trajectories evolve across the 4 time points of our data collection and show the complexity of students' mechanistic reasoning on a scale ranging from 0 to 5. Of course, we wanted to identify some more generalizable trends in our data. Therefore, we applied a longitudinal clustering technique. And here a solution with 5 trajectories indicated the best statistical fit. And therefore, students' mechanistic reasoning followed these 5 trajectories. The yellow trajectory indicates students with the highest mechanistic reasoning complexity. And maybe most interestingly, we could extract 3 trajectories that start at a very similar mechanistic reasoning complexity at the beginning of the semester. However, their trajectories significantly diverge over time. With dependent t-tests, we also extracted or compared the gains in students' mechanistic reasoning complexity from the first to the final time point of our study. Aggregated across all 5 trajectories, we found that students' mechanistic reasoning improved significantly with a small effect size. However, our adaptive support provided by the machine learning model had a differential impact across the 5 trajectories. The upper 3 trajectories showed moderate gains in mechanistic reason complexity. Trajectory D showed a negligible gain, and trajectory E even showed a decline in mechanistic reason complexity over time with a moderate effect size. And this finding indicates that our machine learning-based adaptive support benefited mostly students with moderate to high mechanistic reasoning complexity, while students with lower mechanistic reasoning complexity benefited the least from the provided support in our setting. Then we also wanted to know which students, by considering their intersectional social identities, benefit the most from the provided adaptive support. And here we model students' social identities by intersecting 3 binary variables, which are students' binary gender, whether they belong to an underrepresented minority or not, and whether they pursue their major in chemistry or not. And based on a chi-square test, we found that men who do not belong to an underrepresented minority, so-called UAM students or non-UAM students, and pursue their major in chemistry, were more often assigned to this highest trajectory A than statistically expected. By contrast, women who belong to an underrepresented minority and do not pursue their major in chemistry were less frequently assigned to trajectory A in the setting, and these students were more often assigned to trajectory C. And this finding points to a potential trend in our setting. The machine learning-based adaptive support may have reproduced an existing educational data at scale, and therefore we need to think of ways to improve future implementations of adaptive support, for example, when provided through machine learning methodologies. And here are some final suggestions. For example, we could integrate culturally responsive pedagogy as well as multilingual machine learning analysis to ensure that students' reasoning is fairly assessed across different cultural backgrounds. We could also provide supplemental human tutoring as well as peer tutors or peer learning assistants to better support students with lower prior knowledge. And finally, we could use a series of formative assessments very early on in the semester. And we could also use an education depth sensitive instructor dashboard to better identify the students who need additional support and provide more targeted feedback to those students. And with that being said, I want to thank you very much for your attention so far. And I think the next presentation follows now.
Thank you very much, Paul, for sharing your brilliant research. And now, Jongchan Park, who won the latest Innovative Research Paper Award, will share his research. Jongchan, please share your screen.
All right. So does everyone see my presentation slide? Okay. Thank you. Yeah, hello everyone. Thank you for having me here. And my name is Jongchan Park, and I'm a postdoctoral research associate at the AI for STEM Education Center at the University of Georgia in the United States. So today, I'm going to talk about the kind of theoretical framework or conceptual framework for designing science and engineering practice activities for AI-involved learning environments. So, and then this work is from our center, that I worked with Dr. Xia, Yuruk, and Xiaoming Zhai. So the background of this study is that students in science classroom, they learn science by doing practices such as argumentation, modeling, and investigation. But and then the science classroom organized this through science and engineering practice activities, which we will call them as SAPAs in this research. So researchers in this field have built AI agents to support these activities. So some agents support students. They pose questions, scaffold their students developing ideas, give feedback to them on the individual responses. And other agents support teachers, like they summarize the patterns in student work and help teachers decide where to innovate. But the thing is that what we focus on here is that many of this work focuses on the agents itself. But the activities that these agents are involved, these agents are supporting themselves have stayed the same or like relatively unchanged. So activities designed for a classroom without AI do not necessarily fit or compatible well in classrooms with AI. So that was our focus. And like that is because existing SAPAs were designed under the conditions of a traditional classroom constraints. So for example, where one teacher works with many students with limited time and space, where one teacher can observe only a fraction of student work in progress due to the time and space constraints, and then where the one teacher can respond to only a few students at a time. Um, and also one teacher can cover the curriculum that only by keeping activities manageable by them. So what that these conditions shaped what activities look like. So for example, students submit a final written product, primarily not the draft or talk in the middle talk that led to that final product. Or students' social exchanges happen through brief check-ins by teachers with a few groups, and also iterative practices get compressed into a single class period. So that is, these constraints define the design space of SAPAs. But then these constraints limited the three conditions that matter for learning that we think. First, we know that students develop ideas through many forms of work, for example, drawings, talk, models, data, and writing. But one teacher cannot attend to all of this in real time. So SAPAs have been built around a narrow range of student work. Usually it's finer written artifacts. And second, students develop ideas through social exchanges where someone questions them, prompts, and responds. But one teacher or sustains one exchange at a time. So most students should wait for teachers to come to them. So SAPAs were also built around infrequent teacher-centered interactions. Third, students benefit from doing the practice the way scientists and engineers actually do them. But the time and support limits push these activities toward these simplified procedures. But in AI-involved learning environments, we believe that these constraints no longer hold. So AI agents can elicit and interpret varied and many forms of student work across a whole class at multiple time points in a single activity. And also they can respond to students as their ideas develop. And then it also gives teachers usable information about students' ongoing work. So, and then also they can support the practice in more fuller forms, not the simplified version that we needed before. So that means that the design space that classroom constraints once defined has expanded. And we want to focus on what's these expanded design space. And we propose three dimensions for redesigning the SCPAs. We believe that the three dimension here, multimodality, interactivity, and authenticity, are the things that we can focus on to make that expanded design space more meaningful. So, for example, first, the multimodality, which is the forms of student work on activity elicit and captures interactivity. We define it as the organization of exchanges among students, teachers, and AI agents. And authenticity, meaning that how closely the activity reflects the practices as scientists and engineers carry them out. But before I move on, I move forward, I want to make one caveat that these dimensions are core, but they are necessary, but they are not sufficient. They are not exhaustive. They are not comprehensive. And following them alone does not guarantee that an activity works in an AI-involved learning environment. So that's why we need principled design decisions. And then that is what we will gonna talk about with a evidence-centered design. And I will return to this in short moments. So let me work through each dimension briefly. So as I said, multimodality is about forms of student work. And then the issue here is that it is not simply adding more modality, more modes, but the thing is that most activities already ask students to draw, explain, and revise. The issue is deciding which forms matter for the target practice and making them available while the activity is unfolding. So right now, the finer artifacts capture some thinking, but their talk, sketches, and revisions are often lost. So AI can make those available, we believe. And interactivity. So students can ask agents for clarification and submit work and revise through repeated exchanges. And teacher can ask the agents about the patterns and request summaries to the agents and adjust the support. And then the design decisions relevant here are when AI should initiate or respond, who receives those responses, and how the exchange is running. And lastly, the authenticity is about, as I said, is about how closely the activity reflects the real practice that science and engineering do. So classroom limits reduce the practice to simplified procedures. For example, like scientists argue by talking and writing, at the same time developing their ideas together. But in real classroom, we order these into like separate steps due to the limits of time and space. So the students often write first and then share their ideas and then revise, coming back to their writing and then revise it. So in relation to this, the design decisions are which aspect of the practice to preserve and whether AI serves the practice rather rather than replace it. Okay, so why then evidence-centered design? So the framework so far tells us what to attend to, but it does not tell us how. So making an activity more multimodal and more interactive or more authentic does not by itself make it work in an AI-involved learning environment. So we use the evidence-centered design approach to guide our decisions that I described so far. And those include which forms of student work to elicit, how to interpret them as evidence of learning, and how to organize tasks around them. So evidence-centered design, it has three models that they define. So they have student model and evidence model and task model. The student model specify what students are developing, for example, their proficiencies or their current ideas or difficulties. In our cases, like in we in our case of argumentation, practice, activity, development, we defined the proficiencies as levels from stating a claim or to coordinating claims, evidence, and reasoning at the higher level. And then the evidence model specify which forms of student work to support claims about those proficiencies. And then the task model specifies how the activities is organized so that these evidence becomes available and usable during the activity by the agent. And maybe I can conclude my presentation by illustrating the example that we have developed for the argumentation activity. So, well, yeah, we try to redesign the OpenSci at contact force units lesson. I think it's I think it's typo. It's lesson 2 or 3, but anyway, this lesson is about is the driving question of this lesson was about do all objects change shape or when put or bend when pushed in the collision, and then students are like observe I'm sorry, students observe collision examples. They state an initial claim with reasoning. They compare ideas with partner, examine additional video evidence, and then revise their claim, and then submit a final explanation with a reflection. And then this was the original design, and then we adapted into this looking at CPAs, and then here I think I should have clarified that the I should have distinguished the learning platform itself and then the SAPAs, but but you can consider it the learning platform and then SAPAs as a whole integrated SAPAs. So this is where students watch the video of the collision and then state their claim and type, or they can also record their reasoning, claim evidence reasoning. And so in the original OpenScience curriculum, students only wrote a final answers. The SCPA was designed to students to write a final answer, but here we redesigned the activity to elicit and capture more forms of student work, not just one final product. And this is where the students discuss with their partner in their classroom. So the AI agents here analyze the discussion in real time, where students can type, but we encourage them to speak, so that because this platform supports the real-time transcription. So and then we encourage students not to look at the screen, but they can also look at the screen and then when they need support from agents. But also we are trying to develop this platform for the agents to speak aloud, not giving the message in the chat. So in the original activity, students talked in pairs and waited for the teacher to come by. But here we designed a specific points where the agent can respond, where when students has a claim but no evidence, no reasoning, or like when the two claims conflict. So, and also the teacher receives summaries of this discussion in, this is the screenshot of the, the teacher dashboard. So they can see the summaries here, and then they can also send intervention messages to individual students to facilitate students' argumentation activities. And then this is the kind of summaries how we use the ECD approach, and then how we redesign the activities focusing on each dimension. So, for example, for multimodality, the models specify which aspects of argumentation to elicit through which forms of work. And then for interactivity, they specify when students need chances to explain, compare, and revise, and when AI or teacher responses are useful. For authenticity, we keep the activity close to real practice, like where the talk and writing are happening together, and then revision is also happening together to develop the students' idea, and then rather than the artifact one artifact per one step. So this is ongoing work. Like we are still trying to develop the curriculum. And we hope that we can expand this to effectively redesign the SAPAs. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing, Jongchan. And let's hear from Kent Crippen, former co-chair of the Raise Rig.
Hi, everyone. Can you see my slides okay? Awesome. So I'm Kent Crippen. I'm a professor of STEM education at the University of Florida and the former co-chair of the RIG. And my privilege over the past 3 years has been to run the awards competition. So I want to describe a little bit about how that process plays out, and then some ideas related to what answers this question: what makes Raise Award winners unique from the perspective of the people that were actually reviewing the awards. So for the Research Worth Reading Award, this is a published journal paper, and we typically have 2 to 4 nominees for that award. For the Innovative Research Award, that is a conference paper from the current NARST conference, which includes the Raise Rig poster session. And we typically have from 10 to 14 nominees for that award. The reviewers then are a small collection of executive board people that work with the RIG. Their services, of course, greatly appreciated, especially when you have 12 to 14 abstracts to read for the Innovative Research Award paper. The people reviewing the award for the awards are asked to look at the award criteria and then rank the nominees, and then to provide some commentary. So my attempt to answer this question, what makes Raise Rig Award winners unique, is I went back and reviewed the comments for the award winners over the past 3 years and tried to really think about the intent of the award, as well as what the reviewers were saying about the work that was being presented. So the 5 themes that I've represented on this slide are my interpretation of what the themes are related to the award winners thus far, based upon the comments from the reviewers. So I think in the first case of the first bullet, I think this is the most important one. The work that's represented by the award winners is recognizable as science education. I think some people from the outside could say this is a rig that's based upon AI, that this is really a rig that's focused on strand 12, the ed tech rig. And I think in reality, the representation of the rig as well as the awards is recognizing broadly across the NARST organization from policy to learning in informal or non-formal contexts, and that the work isn't necessarily about technology development. In some cases, that's part of it. It's really about trying to support science education as we know it and understand it, which I think you've heard in the two projects that were described this morning. So I think it's recognizable both in terms of the focus of the work as well as the work that it builds from. So when you hear people talk about work that's been recognized as an award, you hear about teaching, learning, equity, student conceptual understanding, engagement with practices, and then you hear about the work that it builds from being authors and concepts that are clearly recognized within our genre and are differentiated from a general education perspective, for example. So then the awards are also then theoretically grounded and rigorous. This is a common comment, especially in the Research Worth Reading Awards. They're all published in highly recognized research journals. The work is communicated as rigorous, which I think Paul clearly demonstrated in his talk today. And then the work is appropriate and meaningfully orchestrated, that there's a thoughtfulness that's happening behind what the questions are, how the methodology is chosen, how the communications are derived, and the discussion is communicated. So if I think about this concept of things being well communicated, there's always comments about clear articulation, about accessibility of what the study is, as well as the technologies that are being used, and that accessibility is referenced in terms of a very broad audience. The last two bullets are specific to the Innovation Award, this idea of things being thoughtfully novel. I think innovation is a difficult concept sometimes to describe. This is a direct quote from one of the reviewers for a project, this idea of not straightforward, that there's something that the authors are doing in this project that clearly is something creative, not necessarily anticipated, something that's not necessarily just the next step in the progression of research. And then this idea that there's the potential for impact in the work that's being described. And I think based upon the work that I've done in classrooms related to science and engineering practices, Zhangchen's description earlier clearly fits that. So then I know there's a lot of words on the slide, but this is the slide from the recognition of Paul's paper as the Research Worth Reading Award and the citation, of course. But I want to focus you on the comments on the right-hand side. These are direct quotes from the reviewers that I think illustrate the themes that I talked about, as well as further accolades for Paul's team's work. So I'll read them to add a little emphasis where I think is important. So the first one says a significant theoretical contribution to adaptive learning and mechanistic reasoning in chemistry. And the second one says provides an alternative perspective on the discourse of AI in science education. So again, for me, clearly situated in what I think and what I think the organization recognizes as science education, thoughtful, rigorous, well-grounded. And then for the Innovative Research Award, sorry, I have to move the video around a little bit. The first quote here, pushing innovation, as it shows how Gen AI may change how classrooms look, what works, how activities may be done, and how this may force the field to reconsider topics such as epistemic agency, equity, and the scope of curriculum and standards. Clearly complementary statements with regard to this work. And then finally, a new framework that appears broadly useful. Again, that idea that it's both accessible as well as demonstrating the potential for impact. Back to you.
Okay, Ken, thank you so much for sharing these thoughts. I think we have some points on our slides that I think mirror broadly many of the things that you've been talking about. So I'm just going to briefly reiterate them here. I think what very much resonated with me was this point that you made, right? That we are talking about AI in or for science education. So the focus should always be related to the science learning going on and or the science, and it should not just be about the technology itself. I think what I found useful when I was actually reviewing um, some of the proposals as I was one of the reviewers was especially for something like innovation, thinking a little bit about what makes the work that one is doing or presenting relevant after like the next iteration of AI models, right? Is this something that is only relevant now as we have ChatGPT version X, right? Or is this something a bit deeper that may be relevant after the next iteration? Um, and I think sometimes it's also worthwhile to consider a little bit whether the answer to one's research question or the implications of the study could be that for whatever one is looking at, the answer is not using AI, right? AI can potentially solve a lot of things, but sometimes we may also find, well, it's not good used here. So these were some comments here from me, and Gyeonggeon, do you have anything you want to add?
Oh, yes. Maybe it would be good to share the screen for our slides. A moment, please.
Yeah, I can do that.
Oh,
Oh, you
yeah,
have to do it.
please. Yeah. Sorry, yeah. So, what Marcus just mentioned is that the focus on how what AI means for science education, not on the technology itself. So, there are some journals that introduce new AI algorithms and models and data sets, etc. However, what Ray Rick have been emphasizing is not like that, but the synergy of AI and science education. It can be something like, okay, AI is coming, but how conventional science education give a new light on the usage of AI in classroom practices. Another one is that what AI can bring to the existing science education agenda. That could be another one we could focus on. So I would say the Paul's work is like, yes, it's due thanks to AI and maybe due to AI and because of AI, we can look into the agenda of equitable science education again. And I would say Zhongchan's work was something like, okay, now we have AI, then how we should interpret and how we should frame it and how we should use it from now on. So they have two different strengths in each research, I would say. Another one is that for me, I am quite interested in how AI can support subject matter specific teaching practices. Paul's research was a little bit more about organic chemistry, right? And those kind of subject-specific applications might be required for future studies. So recently, I did a small, quick scoping review about how empirical studies have been published in prominent science education journals. For example, especially for chemistry, there were very few of them were published empirically that used generative AI specifically for chemistry. So I thought like, okay, there are still some value for research and publication since until now, many AI ED research published in science education journals have been a little bit like more principle, more generic, and more like uh, yes, suggesting showing potential with some empirical data, but subject-specific teaching can be considered in high school and even on university level science teaching, I would say. Okay, Marcus, do you want to add something more?
I don't think I need to add anything beyond what was already said. So we can maybe take the remainder of the time for some open questions and discussions. So I guess this is the time for all of you. If you have any questions to either us, to Kent, or to the authors, or something about writing these proposals, this is the time to share it and to discuss.
Any opinions and comments would be appreciated.
Hello, morning everyone. Thanks for these great sharing of these uh the Raise Rig Awards. I'm a new member in NARST and I have a procedural question about who can nominate the paper. Are the authors themselves or someone else? And what materials must be submitted for the nomination? Yeah, so that's my question.
I'm guessing that you would like me to handle that one.
Yes, please. Thank you.
I'm saying that I just Marcus and Gyeonggeon haven't had a chance to go through the process yet. So the nomination, you may excuse me, you may self-nominate or you may nominate a colleague. There's a small amount of information, basic name, contact information, and then if it's a existing paper for research worth reading, a citation is typically required, so we can go pull the paper. We also can contact the authors as well. For innovative research paper, we need a copy of the conference proposal, the accepted conference proposal, which again, we can reach out, but if you're self-nominating to provide that or to provide it from a colleague would be helpful. And that's typically all that's required. So the other thing I should say that's been sort of not stated directly is in order to be nominated for the award, you have to be a member of the RIG. And being a member of the RIG is as simple as following or joining the group on the NARST membership portal. So there's not a big requirement to become a part of the RIG, but you should be a member of the RIG when you're nominated, and then that qualifies you.
Yeah,
Thank you
I guess
for the
being a
answer.
member of the RIC is also helpful because that way you can ensure that you get the reminder that the applications
Yeah.
can be sent in.
Yeah, I think Mercy raised hand.
Okay, thank you. I want to start by congratulating these award winners for the good job they've done, and even for the assessors for the good job they did too. But you know, when you're talking about the AI agents, I'm still worried about the role of the teachers in the classroom. Has it made their work easier, or it has question? Because when I give my students assignments now, within no time is done, you know? So I said, are they actually really getting grounded in this content, or the AI is assisting them too fast? So can you just help me with this?
Right, maybe
Anybody can answer the question. Any
yeah,
one of you could answer.
maybe Jongchun could give some answer to that question related to ethics.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think it may be my internet issue or because I lost in the middle. But Gyeonggeon, could you help me to clarify what the question? Was it about the ethics you said?
So in my understanding, it was like, will AI replace teachers, I guess?
Oh, I see. Yeah. I'm sorry, Mercy, was that so to clarify your question, you asked what the teacher's roles is, and then I'm sorry, I lost after that.
Yeah, something like the effect of this on the teachers. Is it actually helping them or making them more confused? Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, thank you for asking that. So we currently develop the several AI agents that help each SCPA, so argumentation, investigation, and modeling. And then we actually worked with the school teachers with using this agent. The teachers' response were half and half, like split it. So some teachers liked it because it really helps them to understand the students' progress in real time so that they can adjust their following learning activities after that. So they said that they have more control even before they use the AI. So, but the other teachers, as you said, were kind of confused about these learning platforms, our agents, because I think primarily because they are not yet familiar with the digital platform that has AI and then that has like active and a little bit not complex, but like the teacher dashboard where it has many information. So those are the kind of the challenges that teachers had to fully use these AI agents to help their teaching, not kind of confusing them. So those are the challenges that we have for now.
Hey, thank you for that answer. And I think we may have time for a last question here. I think Azmat raised a hand.
Yes. Hi there. Thank you so much for this very informative presentation. And I'm a middle school chemistry teacher in New York City and a new NARST member. I'm hoping to pursue a PhD in education with a STEM focus, and I'm interested in exploring AI in chemistry education. So you mentioned that there is still room for empirical subject-specific research, particularly in areas such as chemistry. So, for someone beginning research in this area, what do you see as the most promising gaps or research directions at the intersection of generative AI and chemistry education?
So I think we have definitely one chemistry educator here in the room. Paul, do you want to share some thoughts there?
That's not an easy question to lay out some future directions for research, but for example, you could look into the Journal of Chemical Education. The Journal of Chemical Education recently published a special issue on the use of generative AI in chemistry education across all school levels from K-12 education to undergraduate and graduate education. And just looking through the special issue kind of gives you an overview of what there already is on research and where some potential gaps might be. And you may also have some interests that you have independently of what there's published, and maybe you can then define for your own, based on your own interests and on what's there in the literature, what you may do in the future.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other last minute question, because that question was settled fast. Okay. I don't
Sorry,
see
are we going to have a recordings, the slides?
I think
Can we have the link to the slides?
I think the recording of this presentation will be shared through NARST.
Thank
Yeah, I
you.
guess so.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, then I think thank you all for attending this virtual event. I sincerely hope it was helpful for you, and I wish everyone best of luck and a good process for writing their NAST proposals for the upcoming conference, right? The deadline is more or less in a month. And Zhang, anything you want to close with?
Yeah, I'm so grateful to have this maybe kick off a virtual event for Race Week. Marcus and I plan to have kind of regular virtual event maybe 2 or 3 times yearly besides the annual NARST conference. So thank you very much for attending this very initial virtual session, and your contribution to the Race Week from now on will be pretty much appreciated. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, then lastly, I want to thank Kent, Paul, and Zhongshan for attending here and presenting their work and sharing their insights. And with that, let's conclude the session. Thank you, everyone, and looking forward to hopefully seeing many of you at the conference and the Raise Rig meetings. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.